Oh boy, we got a big one tonight, folks. We have a big story, ladies and gentlemen. Trouble in the Big Ten. The seeds of potential USC and Michigan independence have been planted by Tony Petitti and this plan to try to go to private capital. Welcome in. It is open for business. I am your host, John Kurtz. Thank you for joining me here tonight. Look, we have talked about this Tony Petitti Big Ten private capital. Yes, not private equity, private capital story before, but it is really starting to heat up. And I know we're in the thick of football season, and I try not to get too conference realignment-y during football season if we can avoid it. I did feel tonight it was important enough to bring this to your attention because some of the quotes that we are seeing from actual reporting being done on the ground at Michigan and USC, it's pretty crazy what seems to be happening behind closed doors in the Big Ten right now, and it has kicked in a cycle of discussing whether or not USC and Michigan eventually go independent because of this. So we'll talk about it, okay? Yes, it has also been a busy day in the Big 12 with, I have seen some calling this a scandal. I mean, we'll see where this goes with Mack Rhoades at Baylor, but what we know is that a Big 12 athletic director, Mack Rhoades at Baylor, has taken a leave of absence for personal reasons amid some investigation by Baylor. And, oh yeah, Mack Rhoades is the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. So at a time when the path is looking more difficult for the Big 12 to get to multiple bids in the playoff, that's not exactly the greatest thing in the world. Kenny Dillingham, singing to stay put at Arizona State. There's a new quote that the internet has latched onto big time that makes everybody want to believe that he's leaving. Is that actually legit? Plus, we'll get a preview of Week 12. So that's what I've got on the show tonight. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who does that. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to do that, ofbnews.com to subscribe. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not watching live and you want to kick me a question or comment there, I will utilize it to start the next show so you can still be a part of things. Fill up the chat as you file in. And you can submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. I'm telling you, Tony Petitti's battle, Big Ten commissioner with Michigan and USC, is heating up. And it's now leading to legitimate quotes and legitimate reporting about, is this headed toward Michigan and USC going independent? So that's pretty crazy. And it is all over, of course, this private capital deal. I have to be very careful how I say that, because when I start into even saying private capital, your inclination is to say private equity, right? Like that's what you want to say. That's where you want to get, and you have to stop yourself. No, it is private capital. All right. But this is a quote. I'll get to this quote again in a moment, but this is a quote from an article in The Athletic quoting a Michigan source. Quote, it's headed toward blowing things up. That's in regard to the Big Ten, folks. The Big Ten, the conference that's been around for 120 plus years. Not that that means anything anymore, as we saw with the Pac-12. Oh, who blew up the Pac-12? Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was the Big Ten. Anyway, there's been a lot of reporting going on. Ross Dellinger did a story. The Athletic did a story. There was, like, Matt Hayes did a piece really slamming all of this. Jon Wilner had a very good in-depth article about the potential private capital deal. What it is, it's the California university pension system, basically, giving $2.4 billion of money up front to the Big Ten in exchange for a 10% stake in Big Ten Enterprises, which would be a different entity created to manage all sorts of brand deals, sponsorships, partnerships to make money for all the schools in the Big Ten. Okay. Lots of people have reported on this. Lots of people have opined on this for sure, about it's the worst thing in the world. It's the best thing in the world. It is very typical of our society today. There has been two really strong sides, not a whole lot in between in the middle on this. And even what I saw from some of the reporting here was like the Athletic reporting was going through Michigan and USC, which are the parties that we now know are not on board with this, as the Big Ten tries to push it through anyway. And then, clearly the Big Ten got to Ross Dellinger and had him release his story, which was like, no, here's the reality of it. And I will read you all those points. Okay. But it was the Big Ten trying to tell its side of the story. All right. because I think a lot of people would say, oh, you see a lot. Private equity is the worst thing in the world. It's going to ruin college sports if you bring it in there. Big Ten's quick to point out, and this is legit, it's not private equity. Okay, it's UC Investments. It's a pension and retirement fund. They're purchasing a 10% stake in the new Big Ten subsidiary, Big Ten Enterprises. That would get them then 10% of future media rights, sponsorship, and event revenue. The Big Ten would like you to know, through Ross Dellinger, that they would not have very much influence on the Big Ten or Big Ten Enterprises. I believe they said no influence on the Big Ten, little on Big Ten Enterprises. They get like one seat at the table. They can't sell their 10% stake for at least 15 years. That was from Ross Dellinger's article. So there was concern there, like, oh, well, could they just turn around and flip it and sell it to a private equity person? Couldn't sell it for at least 15 years, and the Big Ten would have a say in who they sell it to. This does extend the grant of rights for an extra 10 years for all the schools in the Big Ten that would sign on to this. That's a big part of this. That's why your lower level schools want this deal. And the Big Ten would also like you to know that the Big Ten presidents told Tony Petitti to seek this out a year and a half ago, even though Jon Wilner asked some very good questions about just what kind of financial incentive there is for Tony Petitti and everybody who works in the Big Ten with this, because it seems like there would be some real financial incentive for them to pull it off. So why do the schools like it, John? Well, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan will be on a tier above everybody else. They would make more money than everybody else in uneven revenue distribution, $190 million from this. Oregon and USC would get 145, everyone else 100 to 110. And then like your unequal distribution moving forward, 5.5% to the top three, 5% to USC, Oregon, 4.9% to everybody else. There's also brand and success initiatives. It's kind of the new standard. It would disproportionately favor schools like Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Now, I think people at Michigan would tell Ohio State, doesn't even come close to really touching what our value is compared to the rest of the conference. The little guys, why would they sign on to the uneven revenue distribution? Because it extends the grant of rights for 10 years. So it gives them more stability. Through 2046, that really handicaps any of the big boys trying to leave. And so if you are Minnesota or Maryland or Indiana, Purdue, one of these schools, you've got guaranteed stability for another 10 years. That's why you like it. Ohio State apparently does still have some issues with Big Ten Enterprises, but they like the capital infusion, which seems weird to me. I mean, I get everybody wants money, but like you're Ohio freaking State. Like you really need this right now. Michigan and USC, though, are pushing back hard. Okay. Here is a little bit on that. All right. So Jon Wilner, first of all, brings up the question of, all right, what would be in this for Tony Petitti? Okay. Tony Petitti has taken a lot of bullets. I will say maybe some of it has been unfair when the Big Ten presidents did ask him to seek out ways to make extra revenue, but that doesn't mean he's above questioning, like, all right, how much money is he going to make off of this? Right. Jon Wilner says Petitti would also benefit, although the degree is unknown. At minimum, the grant of rights extension would give him job security. It eliminates a major threat to Petitti's job security. If a super league formed and Ohio State and Michigan left, well, then you don't have a job anymore. Ask George Kliavkoff how that goes. Jon Wilner also said, we don't know whether Petitti's contract includes performance bonuses tied to conference revenue growth, but it's a safe bet. Look, I have no particular knowledge of that situation. I don't. But what I do know is that Jon Wilner knows his stuff. And so if Jon Wilner is saying it, then I would imagine it probably is likely that that is there. Wilner says USC and Michigan execs are smart enough to see the trap. Their counterparts at Ohio State are focused on the present at the expense of the future. Buckeyes are the biggest brand in college athletics, a TV ratings machine that generates more than $250 million in annual revenue. They already have massive competitive and financial advantages. What do they gain by hitching the football program to Rutgers and Minnesota for 20 years? And I think this is the biggest point Jon Wilner makes, where I'm just like, I have no idea why an Ohio State would want to do this. It says that's three. He says that's 3 lifetimes in college sports. And with changes brought by AI, it could become 10 lifetimes. So trading away flexibility and 10% of the Big Ten's revenue would be an epic whiff, according to Jon Wilner. Okay. One financial expert told Wilner the revenue tiers that the Big Ten is talking about don't begin to reflect Ohio State's real value. So there's some good perspective, but I haven't even gotten to the crazy part of this yet. Okay. I have not gotten to the crazy part of this yet, which is the reporting that came from The Athletic. And then there's a little bit here, Trojan Wire and the Trojan Blade from the USC side that started to dip their toes into all this. They said it would be years down the road, in all likelihood, if this were to happen, because of the Big Ten grant of rights, obviously. But they started to float, like, what about USC being an independent? Trojan Wire, man, I tell you what, they seem a little fed up with the Big Ten. Upset that Big Ten opponents thought that they were kind of soft, being treated like second-class citizens, not in the first tier, not in the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State tier of unequal revenue distribution. And so the question being asked, like, hey, is this sowing the seeds of, like, will USC have to go independent? They say Notre Dame does a good job of embracing its villain role as the country's most famous independent team. USC is also at its best when the rest of the country considers the Trojans a villain. If no one wants to play nice with USC, why hold on to any alliances? Interesting stuff. But the real kicker here comes from the Michigan aspect of this. Okay. From the Michigan part, The Athletic points out, one, there's already been some dissension among the ranks with folks at Michigan who are still upset about the Big Ten suspending Jim Harbaugh to put a bit of a damper on the national championship, post-national championship high, if you want to call it that. The reporting, though, goes on to say this situation with Petiti and the private capital has some at Michigan questioning the future of the school's 129-year relationship with the Big Ten. Quote, "We are the golden goose, us at Ohio State. Why would you cook the golden goose?" Said a Michigan source briefed on the deal. "This isn't an aggressive move by Michigan to break anything up. If anything, it's an aggressive move on Tony's part to break up the Big Ten. It's headed towards blowing things up." So this does not seem like just a minor deal. This seems like a pretty big rift that has formed between particularly Michigan and the Big Ten. USC obviously involved there, and there was the story and the reporting that they had kind of gotten together, both sides of it, and they were they put their heads together more or less when they played in football earlier this year and decided to oppose all of this. Here's another quote. Quote, "I don't think anyone at Michigan is saying we want to leave the Big Ten. That's why it's so puzzling to hear that others want to go ahead without us, essentially pushing us out. Because that's been the Big Ten stance now. According to Dellinger's reporting, they're looking at a next Friday vote on this and kind of saying, hey, get on or we're moving forward without you." And then there would be a grace period where USC and Michigan could still hop on for the next couple of months if they wanted to. More or less just trying to railroad it through, right? Trying to force it through, even if they're not going to actually agree to it. So I found that to be very interesting. Michigan's kind of like, this seems like a tactic to just force us on whether we like it or not. We're Michigan. We deserve respect. And then this is commentary from Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, who was just writing the article. He says the mere idea of Michigan and the Big Ten disagreeing enough about the future to part ways at some point is monumental. Michigan to the SEC, Michigan as an independent, like Notre Dame, speculate away. I mean, Michigan to the SEC, I can't. That seems pretty outrageous. Michigan as an independent, though, USC as an independent, that seems to make a little bit more sense. Now, grant of rights, all that, right? Would that mean that this would be waiting until 2036? What? I mean, how many things could happen between now and a million, a billion? I get it. But in a world where, Florida State was like ready and lawyered up to sue its way out of the ACC at one point in time, you just never know in conference realignment what can happen. And I certainly, if I'm Tony Petitti, the last people I would be wanting to make upset would be anybody at Ohio State or Michigan. And you've got Michigan folks saying this is heading towards blowing up, saying that to The Athletic. I mean, that's not great. That's not a great position to be in. So, look, I know everybody's running with this, doing crazy things. I think it was actually Gambling Gauchos this past week that we're talking about. Who was it that said I guess that was some smack to Notre Dame, where it was like that Utah was going to take Notre Dame's spot in the Big Ten. Anyway, there's been a lot of happenings on Twitter that have gotten people really fired up in their feelings on both sides of this. Obviously, it doesn't seem like anything's imminent here, but I'm shocked that this has turned into such a bit like people are drawing such hard lines in the sand on both sides of this. I figured it would either get through or it would either dissolve, and it would be pretty, everybody would be pulling in the same direction basically wherever it happened. And now it seems like we've got a legit rift here. And with what we have witnessed over the ACC over the last few years, I would just say keep your eye on it and see what happens. I mean, I know this is a show coming from the perspective of the Big 12. Obviously, there would be ramifications and ripple effects if something were to happen here. For now, it's just like as a college football observer, you're kind of pulling up your popcorn here. Like, well, okay, let's see you get out of this one, Tony Petiti. Let's see how this is all going to work out. Anyway, appreciate you guys for being here. I see Scott says this. So Scott, you guys, let me know how this is working because I am not just in vertical mode. I'm in both. StreamYard, which is the streaming program that I now use, allows you to stream both in horizontal and vertical at the same time. So I wasn't sure how that would work when it sends you guys like the alert that I'm going live. I didn't know if that, like, do you just, are most of you getting pulled into the vertical mode? Because it actually helps me more if you go watch it in horizontal mode, but vertical, the idea being it would get you to non-subscribers, like more people out there, wider reach. I've only done it for one show. This is only the second time I've done it. I felt like the numbers were a little bit lower, so it may actually have been kind of a negative. So I'm not sure if I'll stick with it. We'll see how it goes. For now, it's just I'm kind of testing it out, Scott. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on it. So I'd be curious if you were somebody who typically would just watch horizontally and it pulled you into vertical, definitely let me know. Scott says getting vertical on my iPhone and TV app. There should be two separate streams, Scott. So if you go to the channel, you might be able to pull up a different screen or a stream rather. It might be showing up in two ways there. I would be curious to know. Okay, Michael says I get the notification for both, like horizontal best. Yes, thank you, Michael. Thank you for letting me know. I'm glad you're getting both of them there. Okay. Guy from Utah. What's up, guy from Utah? Guy from Utah asked, do you think BYU would go independent again? Also, can you discuss Jacob Rodriguez's path to a Heisman? What kind of hype would Tech need to generate? Here's the problem on the second part. I don't think there's any viable path to the Heisman. Is there a viable path toward him? You know, maybe if this winds up being a year where the Heisman voting it's not like a slam dunk choice out there and you could get like 5 people invited to New York. Could he slip in as like the 5th there? Possibly. I think, look, he had a great performance and forced 2 turnovers. That came up with 2 turnovers anyway in the highest profile game he played this year against BYU. So that was good. I mean, he was a menace in that game. That is good. That helps. The rest of the season, he's just like, before the votes are actually in, he's not going to have much of a chance to do anything, right? This is why I hate that we don't wait until after the postseason to vote on this award, because that would be the thing. I would say the only path he would have to win the award is if you gave it after all the games were done and Tech had a monster playoff run and Jacob Rodriguez was a huge part of it. I don't think there's enough juice left, right? Like, he's playing West Virginia and UCF. Nothing against those two, but not big name opponents the rest of the year. So there's just not enough of an opportunity, I think, to make a splash. I mean, hey, if he has some 4 turnover game or something like that, maybe. But I already saw it was like, to me, I felt like it turned into like a 1 week, we're going to make this a thing among college football people out there, where, like, I'll take the On3 Heisman straw poll that they do as an example. They had Jacob Rodriguez in the top 10 of that for 1 week, and that was before the BYU game. Then he goes out there and forces 2 turnovers against BYU, has like 14 tackles, plays like a monster, and then he was not in it. He was not in the top 10 the next week. So it really felt like it was like a thing. Tech fans got enough momentum on that to make it a big deal for 1 week, and then people kind of forget about it. So I don't think there's a legit chance of that, but I would hope that he could at least, if he could finish in the top 5, I think he may well be headed for a top 10, but if he could finish in the top 5, that'd be great. Do I think BYU will go independent again? No, I don't. BYU, the vibes I get from everybody there is just they have waited so long for a conference, a power conference to be in, a conference to embrace them the way that they have been embraced for the most part. And things are going really well. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, BYU hoops is in the top 10. BYU football was just in the top 10 and is 8-1 after going 9-0 last year. I think right now you keep rolling. You keep rolling. That's a hard life as an independent. I mean, if you're a huge school like a Michigan or USC, you can pull it off, but that's a hard life if you don't have to do it. So, guy from Utah, I appreciate you, my friend. Michael, BYU to Indy, never. No one likes scheduling BYU. Well, scheduling is just that's a nightmare to schedule anyway as a program like that. If you're not a program that commands just the ultimate college football historical lore respect like a Notre Dame, that's just a tough putt, dude. It's hard. That's hard. Okay. Let's see. Oh boy. All right. Next story is the Mack Rhoades story. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Talk college football from a Big 12 perspective all year here on this channel. Even if you're not a Big 12 fan, look, obviously, like today, you are going to find things that you like, and I hope you'll stick around and at least listen in to the Big 12 perspective on the world. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com, twice a week to your inbox for free. One of them went out earlier today, so thank you to all my subscribers who got that. And John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to leave me a question or comment there. Of course, you can leave one here today. If you make it a super chat, I will read it on the show tonight. Okay, so a week ago, the Big 12 had a great initial college football playoff ranking. Utah at 13 had us all jazzed about where this was headed. Texas Tech and BYU both in the top 10. And the Big 12 had the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Mack Rhoades from Baylor was out there answering the questions, and it's like, man, this is great. We got the chair. Things are rolling. Rankings are looking good. Now the Big 12 has neither. Mack Rhoades no longer the athletic director, at least temporarily, at Baylor, and he is no longer the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. He took a leave of absence today from his job for personal reasons, according to what has been put out by Baylor, and it is amid a university investigation. Not Title IX related, but it is an investigation. So there's a lot going on here. This is not the first investigation in the last couple of weeks with Mack Rhoades. I didn't talk about the first one on the show, but there was a report of him during the Arizona State game approaching football player Michael Trigg and verbally yelling at him about the undershirt that he was wearing, that it was a different color than others on the team. And then he got into it with an assistant coach on the sideline. So there was an investigation going on for that. Outkick was actually the first outlet to report that, I believe. So now everybody's wondering, all right, well, what's going on with this one? First of all, what's happening? Second of all, the question I immediately go to is, all right, beside the humanity of it, obviously, I hope if he needs help, whatever this is, I hope he gets it. From the football standpoint, my mind drifts toward, well, you just, as a league, you forfeited your opportunity to have the chair of the selection committee. How much impact that has, I don't fully know, but it doesn't seem great that you just gave that up. And the SEC is now taking it over. Okay, but as far as what is actually going on here, there's not a whole lot that's being reported outside of, so Outkick, who, again, I said had that first story about the Arizona State incident, said, according to multiple sources, there is currently an investigation into an incident that involves someone not currently a full-time employee of the school and Mack Rhoades. So we've got that. That's basically where we're at. So once again, I will reiterate, like, I hope if he needs some kind of help, I don't know exactly what's going on there. I just, for everybody involved, I understand that there's a humanity side of this. It's not really my job to speculate or talk about that, but there is significant ramification, or there are significant ramifications from this as it relates to the Big 12, right? Like, I just talked earlier this week about, it seems like the path to getting multiple teams in the playoff has become more difficult. It's more convoluted, with BYU down at 12, with BYU 3 spots behind Notre Dame, with Texas and Oklahoma right there, with Vandy surviving Auburn. There are a lot of sharks in the water that have Big Ten and SEC patches on them. And that makes it tricky. So I really, I know people on the committee would tell me and tell all of us, like, look, these guys, if it's schools that they're connected to, they've got to, like, recuse themselves. And, it's it's typically a 12-person committee. They were already down to 11 because somebody else had taken a leave. But there's double-digit guys here, lots of talky chat. Like, just because you have the committee chair does not mean that you're going to get, like, an extra little kiss, right? Like everybody else in the room, if you were deliberately trying to do that, you probably, like, people would just throw a fit, right? But I don't know, if you're a leader in there and you've got real sway and you've got a real voice, I would just think it doesn't hurt. And the Big 12 needs every little bit of help it can get in this Power 2 environment. So it was a nice feather in the cap to have the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And it sucks, man. It's a bummer when now you lose that, and you lose that to an SEC AD. Hunter Yurachek is now the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. So you forfeit the seat. Arkansas's AD gets it. Mark Harlan from Utah, by the way, is now on the committee. He's not going to be the chair, but he is on the committee. So you do have a replacement from the Big 12. You just do not have the chair anymore. And I don't know, man. The optics of it, right? Like, just say it out loud. Like, the optics of it when you have Utah and BYU fighting potentially for an at-large spot. Obviously, they have to take care of their own business to get there. But those two fighting for an at-large spot with what I think by the end of the year will likely be 9-3 Texas, 9-3 Oklahoma, 10-2 Vandy, and then you've got 10-2 Utah, maybe 11-2 BYU there. Man, you want to have as much influence in the room as you possibly can, especially after an offseason of lobbying from Greg Sankey, right? Who was trying to put pressure on all of these committee members as much as possible to get more SEC teams in, right? This is a bummer. I was also reading today, like, Jon Wilner threw some cold water. I know I've mentioned him a couple times now. Jon Wilner threw some cold water on the thought of Utah getting an at-large. For sure, Utah getting an at-large bid. Also BYU, but really, really Utah. And I do think it's weird. Like, BYU is the team that fell 5 spots. Utah didn't move at all. But based on, it's like Oregon almost lost, didn't. Vandy almost lost, didn't. Now BYU has fallen back. Utah stuck in the same spot with no juice left on their schedule, with KU, K-State, and Baylor, the only remaining opponents. It does start to look like, man, there's just so many sharks circling the water that are SEC and Big Ten schools. It's going to be tough. And that was really the point that Wilner was trying to make. He even brought up, he threw Michigan into the mix and said, like, look, Michigan's got Ohio State left. So if they went out and beat Ohio State, which they've done seemingly 100 years in a row now, what is it, 5? That would put Michigan right in the mix. If USC beats Oregon and Iowa, I mean, they could move up and steal a spot. And then you would have Oregon sitting there with 2 losses too, probably still getting in. So he was making that point. I had been kind of earlier in the week making the point on the other side of Texas, Oklahoma, and Notre Dame and the difficulty in trying to pass them. Anyway, that's where we're at. Just the vibes don't seem great. I'll put it that way. The vibes don't seem great on BYU or Utah getting into the college football playoff as an at-large. So would suggest finding a way into the Big 12 championship game and beating Texas Tech. Now, I guess the other thing here that's not being discussed a lot in these scenarios is, what if it's a Texas Tech that does lose in the Big 12 championship game to a BYU or a Utah, like whoever it is that gets in? Does that change the calculus there? Specifically, well, BYU or Utah would probably be about the same, I would imagine, in terms of like, no one's going to, the metrics, the efficiency stuff, love Utah so much. No one's going to hammer Texas Tech for a loss to Utah. I'm sure they would still be in the mix. But if there are all these other schools with those logos on their helmets, how much preferential treatment is Texas Tech going to get, especially when you don't have the chair anymore? Anyway, vibes are not good, my friends, on that front. Vibes are definitely not good. Definitely not. All right, I see the comment section is heating up a little bit. Dan says, BYU admin and fans love the Big 12. Glad to be here. There you go. Reinforcing that idea that they are probably not going to be headed for independence anytime soon. So there is that. Let's see. There have been, you guys, some colorful comments. Can you do the show one without mentioning? Did I mention bias? I don't know that I mentioned bias. I don't know. You seem excited to be here and have been here before. So Whirl 69. I do like the 69 there. Nice. Why don't you keep track of it for me? Keep a list. Make a Twitter account, something like that. You seem pretty invested already. Do that. Keep up with it. Let me know. Man, a lot of you guys commenting on the vertical. I really hope it's not screwing it up with the vertical stream here too much with you guys, but appreciate it. I also, you got to love the Utah fan here with the Utah Big Ten, still holding on to the Utah Big Ten thing here. Is that, Rich, is that why you're here? Because, hey, if Tony Petitti has caused this riff with Michigan and USC, maybe there'll be an opening for the old Utes in 2036. It's been a while since we've been down that road. Look, I have grown to like a lot of the people around Utah, that program that I've come in contact with. So I won't make fun of you too hard. And I understand why you would have Big Ten aspirations, Rich, but just embrace the Big 12 while you're here. Embrace the Big 12 while you're here. Okay. Oh, much sooner. All right. Tell me when, Rich. Tell me when that invite's coming for Utah to the Big Ten. Tell me when. Teller 580. Baylor athletic director didn't do what they wanted, so they plan to ruin him to show others to fall in line with the SEC plan. That's how they control politicians. Woo! Boy, now there's, okay. In the comments earlier, somebody was calling me very conspiratorial because I dared read the Athletics reporting of people inside Michigan saying the Big Ten was heading toward blowing up. Call me a conspiracy theorist for reading the reporting of the Athletic and Stuart Mandel, but okay, here's your real conspiracy. This is good stuff. I mean, this is what I should have been leading with. The SEC is pushing out Mack Rhoades. I'm sorry, Teller 580. I do have to chuckle at that a little bit. I'm not sure if that was technically in jest or not, but it made me laugh. It made me laugh. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Don't make that mistake, John. No Utes, go Cougs. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael, for keeping me up on that. Teller 580. Yes, I am aware. Teller 580 mentioned that a minute ago. Hunter Yurachek is the new chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. It seems a little conspiratorial to me. A little conspiratorial to me. All right. Anyway, you guys want to talk a little Kenny Dillingham before we get to? I promise I will talk the week in the Big 12. That is definitely coming. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, especially if you are new. Look, with the vertical stream, hopefully we've got some new people in here. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new. That helps. Talk college football from a Big 12 perspective here on this channel. For those of you who are joining and wondering about this, I'm seeing the questions in the comments. Yes, vertical stream is going at the same time as a horizontal stream. You should be getting notifications about both. If you go to the channel, it should give you multiple different options there to where you could join the horizontal stream as opposed to just the vertical stream. My apologies if it's not letting you do that. This is a totally new feature from StreamYard and YouTube. So I'm trying it out with the idea to broaden the reach with the vertical stream as well. But we'll see. we'll see how it goes, and I'm going to play around with it and see what the views look like either way. So yeah, bear with me on that. Trying out some new things here. Okay, man. I didn't think Arizona State was really in any danger of losing Kenny Dillingham this coaching cycle, even as crazy as it was predicted to be. I didn't think a job big enough that could actually pull him away from his alma mater would get to him on their list. That was the basic logic for me. But, well, you'll have to hear the audio. Okay, you'll hear the audio in a moment. All right, Kenny Dillingham has been mentioned as a comment multiple places. Auburn and LSU for sure. Penn State maybe too. I saw some people throwing out Penn State. I can't remember seeing him on a Penn State hot board, but he's a hot coaching name right now. I mean, the job that he's done to have ASU here at 6-3 without Sam Leavitt for multiple games, without Jordan Tyson for multiple games, Leavitt now out for the year, Jeff Sims winning games for them when he's already a guy that like resurrected the career of Bo Nix. You know, I mean, he's proving again that he can take a quarterback that's been discarded in college football and turn them into something. And they have, I mean, go look at Arizona State's schedule the rest of the year. It's manageable, man. Very manageable. They could still finish 9-3. Absolutely could. So I thought here, like Auburn is probably not a place quite big enough, or a job at least like quite stable enough to pull Kenny Dillingham from Arizona State. And at the same time, LSU would be swinging more for the fences than Kenny Dillingham. Nothing against Kenny Dillingham. I don't even think I agree with that. LSU should go find a good coach, not a big name. But that seems like the LSU vibe, right? So I didn't think that this would really be much of an issue. And then I think it was Chris Cartman, who does a really good job covering Arizona State, who had reported initially that Dillingham, supposedly in a team meeting, told the players that he wasn't going to be going anywhere. And then Dillingham went on local radio after that and said, quote, "Those are the things that matter to me, are the relationships that you build along the way. So for me, I keep my head down and do the best job I can for our players, because that's what this is all about. I've said from the beginning, my next door neighbor is my sister. My parents live 3 doors down. My wife's parents live 5 doors down. My wife's as competitive a person as you'll ever see. She's a person who wants to win national championships. She's a person who wants to win. She's competitive and loves ball." So, you know, those quotes, that was really celebrated, understandably so, around Tempe and Arizona State. But the internet has latched onto a quote. The internet has latched onto a soundbite from good old Kenny Dillingham this week. Okay. And I'll play this first. I will give you my reaction to it on the other side. I will play this first, and we'll see what you guys think of it, okay? I know sometimes the audio is a little quiet here, but bear with me.
This program is not Kenny Dillingham. This program is player-driven. It is the players. It is the fans showing up and selling out games. That's what wins in college football. Coaches are not nearly as valuable as everything else, right? So our players are the forefront of our program.
Okay. You can see the quote there. This program is not Kenny Dillingham. It's the players. And he goes on to say, like, hey, coaches aren't nearly as important as the players in the program. And, well, noble, you know, I mean, that's noble on one count. But the other side of it is everybody, if you go look at the quotes, they're like, oh, buddy, 1 foot out the door, trying to soften that blow, saying this program it's bigger than Kenny Dillingham, AKA when I leave, the program will be fine, trying to soften that blow. Also amid a week where it's like there have been all these rumors of Kenny Dillingham interviewing places, which seems a little silly to me because let me go double check this. But didn't Arizona State have a bye last week? Like the week for interviews would have been during a bye week. It was, yeah, because he said he was going to give the whole team the week off. The week for interviews, guys, would have been the bye week, not when he comes up to actually have a game this week. So that's point number one, right? Like the internet does not always know what it is talking about. The internet does not always know what it is talking about when it comes to speculating about things of this nature. All right. Point one. Point two, we have no real idea. I don't know what the question was that was asked there. I don't know what the rest of the response was. That is a 15-second snippet that seems just primed for the internet to jump on. I I have been to a million press conferences in my day. Again, for those of you who are fairly new to the channel, I mean, I spent 10 years covering K-State and traveling across the entire Big 12. I've been to a bazillion of those things. And yeah, there are a lot of times where something from that will get taken out of context and you'll kind of look back and be like, all right, well, that wasn't really fair how that was presented by either me or somebody else, whether it was intentional or not. So having that perspective on it, I'm inclined to be a little more like, just roll my eyes a bit at it. Like, okay, am I thinking that Kenny Dillingham is for sure leaving? No. Am I thinking that he's for sure staying? No. But I don't think my stance has changed because of that clip. I think my stance was the same because there are so many jobs open and we really have no idea like what the dominoes will be that will fall from this. I have no idea what the fallout is going to be from all of these big jobs that are open. So we shall see. Make no mistake, if the Big 12 loses Kenny Dillingham, that's a big blow for the conference. We obviously saw what he could do last year when his stars stay healthy. Okay. I think and what he's done this year to follow that up, especially with, again, everything they've dealt with. I think he's really reinforced. That was not a 1-year flash in the pan. This guy can coach. The fact that he's an alum is the thing that would really sting there. It's like, it's one thing if you lose a really good coach from your conference, and the Big 12 is no stranger to having everyone trying to chase down Matt Campbell or Chris Kleiman or Lance Leipold. Jed Fish did leave before he quite got to the conference, right? Like, Big 12 coaches have been chased before. Most of the time they haven't left. They especially haven't left when they've been an alum of the school. That would sting, obviously, for Arizona State, but I think even for the Big 12 and just a shot across the bow of the landscape that we're in, especially like if it were for like Auburn. I don't need Auburn fans blowing up the comments. I respect your program immensely. There is a high upside with that job, but there's also a pretty low floor, especially because you're neighbor to Alabama, and it's kind of a toxic, crazy job and environment. You could be run out of there in 2.5 years easy. So I don't know. If it's Auburn, if he's leaving his alma mater in the Big 12 for Auburn, that's a tough blow for the Big 12. I still don't think that's going to happen. But hey, if LSU decides we just want to hire the best coach out there and we don't care about the name, oh boy, that'd be a pretty smart move. I think for LSU's sake, I think Kenny Dillingham would be great there. And that's the type of job where you just sort of have to tip your cap if that actually happens. But in the end, to close this segment, Bracket Cat, I think, hits the nail on the head. The internet rarely knows what it's talking about. That is correct. But boy, the internet will sure tell you what they think. I promise you that. Okay, let's get to a couple super chats here before we talk the week in Big 12 football. Gentle Brutality says BYU and Texas Tech on hangover upset alert. Oh, I'm going to get to that. I wrote about that in Open for Business this week, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter twice a week for free to your inbox. TCU has a great offense. UCF has good pass rushers. And Texas Tech's QB is held together by duct tape. Yeah, it will be very interesting. Gentle Brutality, I'm going to put a pin in that. I promise I will get to it in just a moment when I go through the games from this week, okay? Because you make really good points. Really good point. It's almost like you read Open for Business, Gentle Brutality, if I'm being honest. Teller 580. Kenny's been given all credit to players for 2 years. Kenny says that every press conference, all about players, not him. Yeah, look, and also very good context. If you're an Arizona State fan that's watching the press conferences week in, week out, that is totally different, right? Like, you go look at the bios of the people that are jumping on that quote. Oregon fan, Auburn fan, LSU fan, right? Like, that's, maybe an Arizona fan or two. I can't remember if I saw that. Maybe an Arizona fan or two. That's what you're going to get. Good context. Thank you, Teller 580. Thank you, sir. Okay. So as far as the week goes in the Big 12, look, the headline this week is, how do BYU and Texas Tech handle the hangover effect of the spectacle that was last week? I totally agree with Gentle Brutality, who just had the super chat a moment ago about that. That is what I will be watching here. It's kind of a BYU and Texas Tech handling the hangover, and then do Utah, Cincinnati, and Arizona State take care of business? Because they're all very much still in the picture for the Big 12 championship. Even Arizona State, there are scenarios that get them in, and it's not totally far-fetched. Chris Cartman had a really good outline of the scenarios and how the standings have to look at the end of the year if you want to go track that down on Twitter, if you want to follow him. But yeah, I mean, look, Texas Tech obviously has a much easier opponent on paper, nothing against UCF, than TCU. Both teams are at home, which will help a lot, I think, when you're trying to mentally recover from that. You know, I would, had BYU like lost a close game, a heartbreaker, or won the game in Lubbock, I think I would be more worried about BYU's ability to regroup after that than I am after getting spanked 29-7. You know, I mean, let's be real about what happened there. They got thumped. That was a game that they lost by 22. And I would argue, if anything, it could have been worse. So BYU's got all the motivation in the world to not show the nation once again. I mean, they're playing on ESPN, right? Like they're in their own time slot on ESPN, the late night game, Big 12 after dark. They want to put on a show. They do not want that to follow them here and beat them twice. I think, Bear Bachmeier seems like real ultimate competitor kind of guy, special competitor. He had a bad game. I don't think he's going to just sit down there and lay down and die in this game. So and TCU, the other thing you have to think about there is that TCU's mental. Where is that at, right? They just blew an 11-point lead in the fourth quarter against Iowa State to lose a game that effectively removed them from the Big 12 title hunt when they were right in it. And TCU's just been so sloppy. They turn it over a lot. Josh Hoover's thrown 8 picks this year. BYU's defense is one of the best in the country at forcing turnovers. They're very opportunistic. I don't like that matchup a whole lot for TCU. So I think BYU is probably going to be okay there. Like, in fact, if I were making predictions this week, I really like BYU minus 3.5. I also really like Utah minus 8.5 that I'll get to in a moment. Texas Tech, I mean, I think they should be fine. Once again, nothing against UCF at all. But this is the type of game I think we've seen Texas Tech be sloppy, sleepwalk a bit at times, like in the Kansas game, like in the Houston game. And they were still fine and won both of those games by like 3+ scores. So I think it's another type of game like that. I would also throw in there, like, Texas Tech had more of the distractions last week with the fact that the game was on their campus, the fact that you had everybody, in Raiderville, like, lined up, all the students, and they were going out and like playing video games with them after practice. It was a totally unique circumstance, and they handled that just fine. They went out and played great football. So I think Joey McGuire's got them pretty locked in. I wouldn't worry about it a ton. Utah and Baylor, man. I mean, look, there's a lot going on at Baylor this week. We just talked about that with Mack Rhoades. Maybe that can galvanize them. I suppose that could probably send you in one of two ways, either really galvanize you or really distract you. It's also Dave Aranda probably coaching for his job at this point. But Utah's deal has been they either lose or they beat you by 30. I mean, that is literally what's happened this year. Every Big 12 win has been by 31+. They're beating FBS opponents by an average of 33 points per game this year. I just expect that trend to continue. I don't think Baylor's good enough to actually beat Utah. And so I expect Utah to win by at least a couple of scores there. That's why I really like that 8.5. The logic is pretty simple. And then Arizona State and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, a bit forgotten. They were forgotten for the first half of the year. They rose up and had their moment very briefly there with game day following them to Utah. It was like everybody finally bought in, like, okay, man, like Cincinnati's pretty legit here. We need to pay attention to this. Then they go and get drilled by the aforementioned Utes, who beat everybody by 30 if they're winning the game. And now it's like Cincinnati with a bye week has kind of been forgotten, but they finished with a real flourish here. They've got Arizona, BYU, TCU to finish the year. So it's going to get a lot tougher. How do they handle Arizona? I mean, I think Cincinnati is better than Arizona, but Arizona is capable if Cincinnati's not locked in. West Virginia, Arizona State. I mean, West Virginia's starting to put something together. Don't sleep on the Mountaineers here. it is still Jeff Sims, Arizona State, even though incredible effort by him last time out in Ames. But I tell you what, you got to, Scotty Fox, man, with what's going on at West Virginia, you got to at least be a little bit encouraged by what you're seeing there for the future with a freshman at quarterback. Now up to 825 yards passing, 5 TDs. Okay, a guy who can run the ball as well. Like I like what Rich Rod is putting together at the end of the year here. I would be leery of that if I were Arizona State. Be leery of that. And then I guess we covered every game except K-State. I mean, frankly, the K-State Oklahoma State thing is just like how much does K-State care? How much does K-State care? Because they just had a bye week. After losing a game that effectively eliminated them from Big 12 championship game contention. So you have that. You get to go home for a while. A lot of these players got to go home over the bye week. How fired up are you going to be coming back to play Oklahoma State when you don't have the Big 12 championship to chase, when that was the expectation coming into the year? I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're going to lose, but I will be interested to see what the effort level is going to be like. Alan, before I close up shop here. What's up, Alan? Thank you for being here. Alan says, John, hope Texas Tech wins the Natty. Alan, our resident Kansas fan here, rooting for Texas Tech, says, always happy to hear of discord in the Big Ten or SEC. Seems that ridiculous money matters more to them. Well, love of the game matters more in the Big 12. Yeah, well, love of money or not love of money, Alan, that's really the battle there, because it seems Michigan and USC are not as into just the quick short-term money grab, whereas Tony Petiti and the rest of the teams in the Big Ten are into either the cash grab or, hey, let me latch on to security here, sign a grant of rights through 2046 so that I can have a conference home as long as possible. Glad to see Alan pulling for his conference mates at Texas Tech. And yeah, good to see you, Alan. Okay, yeah, there wasn't a question there that I'm missing. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate your support as always, my friend. Let's chat with Starter 179 here really quick. Starter 179 says, what would be the most compelling Big 12 title game? I mean, I'm trying to, the debate in my head is like, I want to say the easy answer is, well, if you just get the rematch, BYU v. Texas Tech. If BYU wins its final 3 games, that would mean wins over it's TCU, Cincinnati, and who else? Who's the other game? BYU? One moment. But the TCU and Cincinnati games would be enough to give them at least a little bit of juice, right? They could creep back toward the top 10. UCF is the other one. From a pure, like, what is the ranking next to the name standpoint, that's probably the best one. The problem, though, is everybody saw what happened when the two teams played, and it was 29-7, and it's fresher in their minds, and more people were paying attention, right? Because, yes, the same thing happened to Utah, and it actually happened in Utah's building as opposed to on the road. However, that was in September, and while it was billed as a big game at the time, I think your average short attention span college football fan, it's not as vivid in their memory. Whereas, and it also didn't get the level of buildup that BYU Texas Tech did. So there's a part of me that, combined with how Utah just blows everybody out and the metrics love them, there's a part of me that thinks if it turned out that Utah played in the Big 12 championship game now, and it would give Utah fans a chance to affirm their theory that it's like, hey, if we had just been healthy, we're a totally different team now, all these things. All right, we'll go prove it. I think you could argue either way, I guess is my point. You could argue either way on the Utah BYU thing versus Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. What would be more compelling? If it gets beyond that, if it's anything besides that, Cincinnati, I'm not saying Cincinnati couldn't be compelling. I would actually be interested to see how that looks against Texas Tech. Could Brendan Sorsby figure out that defense at all? But the problem is, like, we saw him against the Utah defense. It did not go very well. Cincinnati doesn't carry the same level of juice this year that Utah or BYU does, right or wrong. So I think it's one of those two. I don't think you could go wrong either way. It's a little bit of a hedge, but I do genuinely believe that. All right, let me answer the last 2 super chats, and I will get out of here. I got to watch a little K-State basketball tonight. Michael says, obviously, BYU beating Texas Tech by 35. That's funny, Michael. Can you tell who Michael's a fan of, you guys? Scott, Scott, what would happen if no Group of 5 conference champion is ranked? They will get a representative. It's the top 5 highest ranked conference champions, no matter where they come from. So there are only 4 power conferences. One Group of 5 or Group of 6 conference champion would be in. So that's why when you're thinking about the rankings, you can't think about, oh, Utah just needs to climb into the top 12. No, Utah or BYU need to climb into the top 10 because the ACC also does not have anybody ranked in the top 12. So you have to think about them getting a champion in, and you have to think about Group of 6 getting a champion in. Need to make it into the top 10 if you are one of those schools. So, all right. That is it. Good question, though, Scott. Thank you for being here. Thank you, all you guys. Hey, Utah to the Big Ten fan. Thank you for entertaining everybody in the chat. Looks like that was a wild ride for all of you guys today. Thanks for being here once again. Thanks for bearing with me on the vertical stream. Like I know a lot of you guys, it seems like just monitoring the chat, a lot of people were sucked into the vertical stream as opposed to the horizontal. That's a little frustrating to me. Like the idea is to get a wider reach by using both of these. New feature on YouTube and StreamYard. I would rather just get my regular viewers in via the horizontal stream. I'm going to experiment with that and see what the viewership numbers actually look like. If it's making a big difference to be doing both, I will try to continue that. But let me know like what you guys are seeing and experiencing on that. Because I know that's got to be annoying if you want the vertical stream or you want the horizontal stream and you've got the vertical stream. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. All that helps. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. And if you're on audio platforms, please rate and review. I appreciate all of you guys. Take care and have a great night.